What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. First, want to introduce my guest. He is my co-host on the Jesus Method podcast. He is a father, a husband. Also, he is my brother in Christ. Of course, I'm sure most of you know him. If you don't, he does spoken word. He does poetry. He does music. So I just want to welcome my guest, Fabrizio. What's up?
Hey, glad to be here. I'm so glad we can record this evening. I'm excited to get into this topic you got me on here for.
Yeah. So speaking of that, so the topic is going to be absent dad, present father. So we're going to be talking about that. You'll kind of get
Mhm.
the gist of it as we go on. But kind of starting with that, kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself. We're getting ready for the podcast. So there.
Right now, I am trying to take care of, my wife and my son, being a husband and a father, working all the time, and, trying to take care of paying bills and keeping lights on and everything. But, right now I'm in a place in my life where I just sometimes I get this shadow feels like it's following me of are you doing enough in your life? Are you doing the will of God in your life? Is your life amounting to what it should? And I think sometimes those thoughts are really good to have, you know, but they can be kind of paralyzing sometimes. And I'm trying to, I want to make sure I'm doing God's will and doing things that add value to my walk with God and to other people's lives because
Yeah.
I can get in a state of thoughts saying to myself, "Man, you're not really doing enough in your life. Is your life pointless?" And I have to remember that God put me on this earth for a reason. He saved me for a reason. He moves in my life for a reason. He has a relationship with me for a reason. And so I had to focus on that, especially now and everything, because with been married for 3 years now, been a father for 2.5 years almost now. So life has been hitting me fast and quickly. Everything feels like it happening all at once. Having zero responsibility to having all this responsibility of hey, I was single, childless, I was just cool doing my own thing. Now I'm married, have a son, and now I'm like, what do I need to do next? How do I plan my future? And for the longest time, and even now, I feel hopeless. I do. And hopeless in the sense of, man, how do I get from point A to point B in my life? What are the goals I need to achieve? What are the goals I need to set? What do I need to do about my career, job, stuff like that, just everything that everybody deals with basically for the most part, in life. And it's about trusting God and really learning not to put any trust into yourself, but fully into God and moving in the confidence of God and not of yourself. Because things been happening in my life continuously that I'm like, what is going on? Like, oh, another thing just happened. Here's a new thing. Here's a car payment now I have to make now. Um, oh, I'm late on a bill that I forgot to pay because everything happening in my life. Oh, son is sick. Oh, I'm starting to feel sick. That's one of the worst things ever. As for me, is man, I'm starting to feel sick. I can't call out of work today. I can't. I
Right.
gotta. I gotta get paid. I gotta make sure I'm able to get food for everybody. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now is trying to trust God and just actually walk with him and growing my faith and rediscovering my calling from God.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely feel you on that. That's like where I've been in that situation, that position right now, going through my life right now with being
Mhm.
engaged. And she's got two kids, and I've got Roman. So then it's like the two of us together now. We have three kids that we have to take care of. So like that changes my perspective on things where before it was just me, and then I only had Roman. It was just me and Roman that I had to worry about. So now there's there's an additional 3 people being added to my family. But yeah, so like I was saying, there's like a position in my life right now where it's like I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for like a long-term career. So that's where I've been kind of struggling at and trying to get like my things in order, like my credit, getting my finances in order, making sure that I'm able to get like monthly tracking and different stuff like that. So that's kind of where I've been as well. So I feel you on that. But kind of going into like starting like leading into the conversation, kind of tell us of like what your childhood was like kind of some of the struggles that you had as a child, like not really having your father in your life.
Well, one thing that I was blessed with for sure is being raised in a good church where they pointed me to God and to have a relationship with God. That God really has had his hand on my life since I was a child. My mom took me to church when I was young. So I always had a sense of needing to have faith and to have hope. But growing up without a father, I can remember times in my life, especially let's say the age of 5, the age of 6, and everything. Like, oh, I don't have a dad. Especially going to school, everybody's talking about their parents, and I'm like, oh, I only have one parent. What's it like having a dad? And it grew into other things like things that happen like instantly. Now there's things that I look back on and like, man, I really needed a father in that situation. But things that had immediate impact was who do I go to when I'm hurt, human wise? Who do I go to uh talk about the things I'm going dealing with school or bullies or girls or anything? Like those were the immediate things. But one major things, looking back, is confidence. I did not have that great of confidence growing up, uh, especially in teenage years. My confidence was like down because, like, what is it supposed to be? What does it mean to be a man? How am I to have responsibilities? How am I supposed to handle those responsibilities and care about those things, a family, friends, in my life? Like, how am I supposed to handle my business, basically? And another thing that affected my childhood with not having a father was how it affected my mother and her raising me. I understand she did the best she could. God gave her grace and everything, but she could only be a mother. She couldn't be a father, and that put a lot of stress and pressure on her to the point where, of course, she had to handle her own problems, and that can be burdensome
Right.
because without the father being there, it throws an imbalance to the comfort and the stability of a family. You know, like my mom, of course, God was a big thing in growing up. We always prayed together and all that. So it did teach me to put a lot of trust in God. I guess one thing I can point out what happened, most important thing though that happened was me finding this verse that said, though my father and mother may forsake me, God never will. It was David who wrote that. And so that's something that stuck out to me because my father forsake me at a very early age, before I was even born. and he didn't want anything to do with me. And one of the things he said to my mother was, "Oh, and you're supposed to do a good job raising him? Are you going to be a good parent to him?" While he
Right.
decided not to even interfere into my life at all. So
Yeah.
it's really weird. And also, like, he just, would just nothing was there. I didn't have any type of male role model in my personal immediate life, like extremely immediate day to day to day life, like at all.
Yeah.
So it was just so bizarre because I always felt like there was something missing. And my mom had my sister when I was 3 or 4. I can't remember. Maybe something around 3 or 4. And was just growing up, it just always felt like there was someone missing to complete the family.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah,
So
so much there's so much more I can share, but we can just
so
keep going.
so was there ever like a point in time like where you felt like, I guess you could say, hard feelings toward him? Like, was it at that young age when you were like younger, or was it like you didn't really notice it too much exactly, except for like whenever, like, of course, you said other kids would talk about it, but like any other
Mhm.
times where there was times where you, or was it more of a once you hit like your teenage adult years that you, that any time during that time that you ever felt like any, I guess you could say, feelings toward that situation of him leaving?
Like being angry. I remember
Mhm.
being angry a lot growing up because my dad wasn't there. Like I seen all these kids, you always picture all these kids playing baseball with their dads or throwing a football or literally, oh man, so this is how you fix this, or this is how you work on the car, or this is how you do your finances, this is how you save money, or anything along those lines. I was
Gotcha.
so bitter and angry that I didn't get to have that in my life growing up. That it made me upset, and I was so angry at him, especially when uh there would be problems in my family, relation it could be relationship or just anything down the line. Mom gets stressed out about something, yada yada, and my dad wasn't there to like comfort her. Like she didn't have that male comforter in her life, so that always just it made me, sad and upset. It's like because, you know, all that stuff trickles down. It affects my mom, therefore affects me, and therefore affects how I handle relationships that I'm in.
Right. Right. Well, speaking of like relationships and stuff, did that, like, so normally like when people feel like they're missing something, right? They usually go out and try to find something to fill that. Like, did you ever come to that point in your life where you, like, looking back at it now, that you did something that you felt like you were just doing it to try to fill that void necessarily?
Well, the biggest thing, I mentioned this, and was my relationship with God. That's mainly the one of the main reasons why I fell in love with God and wanted to have a relationship with God was because he is the Father, the everlasting Father, and that I know I could talk to him. I knew that I may not see him with my physical eyes, that his Holy Spirit would dwell inside of me. His presence would always be with me, and that he cared for me, he died for me, he rose from the grave for me. He knows all the hairs on top of my head. He knows the things that hurt me, the things I love, the things I hate, the things that could, you know, bother me, or he knows everything about me.
Right.
And he's this omnipotent, omnipresent God. Huge. He's this huge, I'm not gonna say mythical creature or anything, but like basically like he is beyond this realm. He is beyond the plains and the field of this world. Yet he decided to have a personal relationship with me. He
Right.
decided to call me son. He decided that I'm gonna care for this boy. I'm gonna be there for this little child. And that's why I feel like I'm so blessed, because I do hear so many stories of, and the statistics out there with men being raised in fatherless homes. They get more involved in criminal activities. They're more in line to go into poverty. They're more in line to spend a lifetime in prison, more likely to be abusers, just all the negative side effects that you could possibly imagine. But I was so blessed that though I definitely had a lot of inconsistencies in my life because of lack of having that father figure in my life, I had the ultimate father in my life that helped me with so many things that I could go to and talk to him about. No, having God in my life saved me from so much trouble, so much pain. I didn't get into drugs. I didn't, break laws. I didn't become a criminal or anything. God literally protected me since I was a child. So, luckily, thankfully, I don't have any like crazy stories about, oh man, I did this and that trying to be cool, except middle school. Now, middle school is when I really wish I had a dad, because
Yeah.
middle school, I was I was cursing, I was trying to be with the cool kids that I thought,
Yeah.
really beginning to have a perverted mindset on women and girls and pornography. That's when pornography really hit me in my life and everything. And that's when I definitely wished I had a father then, because he'd be like, "Boy, what you doing? Why you hanging out with these people? Why?
Right.
I know you're in middle school and there's not a lot of options for friends or whatnot, but
Mm.
nah, you need to do better." But yeah, so yeah, because the blah blah blah. Really edit this right here so
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
get. I was trying to get my train of thoughts back together, but yeah, I wish I had a dad who would sit down and scolded me or directed me.
Yeah.
Like, God eventually did do that, but it's so, it's definitely different when a human male father figure sits down with you, puts his hand on your shoulder and just looks you right in the eyes and tells you how it is,
Right.
or tries to help you, give you advice, comfort you, or just direct you, just being that shepherd in your life, that good shepherd.
Right.
So definitely middle school just is when I was wilding out. It's just, when God really started to change me a lot, though, was in high school, and that's when my relationship with God changed a lot and I grew closer to him. But honestly, if I'm being honest, like, I think having a father is so undervalued nowadays.
Right.
I feel like fathers are being kind of pushed away to the wayside as not as important as what they are. And I think that is extremely gross,
Yeah.
honestly. But anyways,
Speaking
sorry I
like so
talk
like
a lot.
oh no, you're fine, you're fine. But like so like after you went through all that, I mean talking about that, I realized like that only doesn't show the importance of having needing a father, but it also shows the importance of needing a Christian father. Um, because there are a lot of fathers who would actually cheer you on the fact that you're talking to a whole bunch of women. There's fathers who will be like, "Oh well, I don't care. He's just acting like I did when he was younger." Like that's the importance of having a Christian father who will sit down and be like, "Hey, that's not what God has called you to do. That's not what God has wants for us to be doing all the time." But segueing into with all that, like once you ended up growing up, getting out of school and stuff like that, really, how does your father not being around, how has it affected you necessarily as a man starting out?
Honestly, it's affected me more, I believe. Like I can see the repercussions even more now, especially after becoming a father. I'm like, oh man, jeez.
Yeah,
First thing is like even after I graduated high school and everything, I was going from girlfriend to girlfriend. I was
yeah,
still talking to a lot of girls. I would I I was going around having multiple intimate partners down so to speak, but I was sharing a lot of myself with multiple women and just not taking my life seriously. You know, oh, I'm just going to play video games all day and not care about anything else. Or I'm in college now and oh, I'll study for like 30 minutes, but I'm done after this. I don't care.
yeah,
And it's affected me more because now being married, it's not easy. I make so many mistakes. I'm not perfect now. I wish I could be like, "Hey, hey dad, can I talk to you about some? Me and my wife, we going through something and I just need your advice about what I need to do to improve the situation or correct myself in this situation." But that's something I don't have. I do have godly men in my life that I could come to and talk to, which is completely fine and is a blessing. But once again, it's not like having a dad in your life,
right,
It's
yeah,
it's completely different. So definitely feel like it's the older I get, the more I wish I'm like, man, I wish I had my dad in my life right now.
right, yeah. And I get that because like now thinking back on it, having my dad around, I think it's like a twofold. Like the people that have their parents around, they sometimes take advantage of the fact that their parents are around. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
They get used to that. So then their parents giving them advice or trying to correct them, you're like, they just don't understand or they're just getting on my nerves. Whereas the people on the other side, they're like, well, I wish somebody would just correct me. I wish somebody would be there to get on my nerves. You know what I mean? So, and that's kind of like, I guess, where like my portion of it came in where I started acting up was it was kind of
Hmm.
like, well, they're just always on my case, or they're just always, they just don't understand like how it is to be my age or whatever, you know what I mean? So like, and with that being said, like once you became a man, like and then you ended up getting married, of course. How did that how was there things that you had to work on with the dynamic between the two of you not seeing that presence of your father with your mother? Was there different like things you had to learn going into like your marriage and different things?
Definitely. No, honestly, man. Hey, Roman's blessed. That no, seriously, just having all this conversation, he comes to you multiple times. And you keep
Yeah,
telling him, "Hey, get out, we're doing something." I never even had the opportunity to annoy my dad or
yeah,
get into he's busy, let me go interrupt him. Like I
yeah,
never had that. I never got to do something like that. Like there's so many things and you can add this to it or not. Like there's so many moments that I get to share with my son that I never got to share with my dad. So it's a whole new different experience for me. Like,
Right.
ah, some kids like, oh, I remember when dad used to do this with me and now I'm doing it with my son. And I was like,
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing, but this is cool. Like, oh, this is what it's like to have a little child running around all the time
Yeah.
and another grown adult male being around. Like, I never got to experience a hug from my dad.
Yeah.
I never got to experience him rolling his eyes at me because I done said something stupid. I never got to hear my dad yell at me.
Yeah.
I never got to hear, "Hey, son, I'm so proud of what you did today," or "I'm so proud of what you're doing in your life." And I have never got to hear any of that, but from God, I do get to hear, "I love you. I'm here for you. I gave my life for you. I want you to spend eternity with me."
Right.
And guess what? I'd rather, if having God in my life means I never got to have my dad, then I would take that in a heartbeat, of course. It's really hard a lot of days.
I understand
Really
that.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cause yeah, I can 100% say it's a lot different. Like I love my mom, and I know she says she's proud of me a lot, but it's different whenever it comes from either your father or God, one of the two. When
Mhm.
you hear them say, "Son, I'm proud of you," it's a whole different feeling. It's a whole different. It gives you a whole different outlook on things of it that you're doing okay, that you're doing right. If your dad not you're not seeing that dynamic between your dad and your mom,
Mhm.
what was some things that you like had to experience, some things you had to learn, some things that you missed seeing between them that may have caused you issue or different things once you were married?
Man, that's a whole list of things that no, seriously, like it's like learning how to swim when you never knew what water was.
Right.
Like you're diving headfirst into a huge pool of water and you don't know what water is.
Yeah.
Like completely foreign. Like of course I know the Bible verses that says, "Husband, love your wife like Christ loves the church
Right.
and died for the church and makes the church clean, wash it, prepares the church and whatnot." I know it, but it's I'm learning how do I do it now.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's a huge learning process. Like biggest thing was learning, oh, I have an ego.
Yeah.
Oh, I think my way is the way for everything. We're like,
Right.
of course, here she goes again, being emotional. Or she doesn't understand my thought process or what I'm trying to do, thinking that, oh, she just doesn't understand where I'm coming from. Oh, she decided to have attitude with me. Hmm, guess what? I'm not gonna bring home any snacks for her today. She wants a little chocolate, like, babe, can you give me some chocolate from the store? No, you got an attitude with me. And I'm gonna get attitude with you. So like learning like, oh, just because one person is having a bad day doesn't mean you need to act the same way or make the situation worse. Like, learning to just be gentle and kind, like, just a decent human being. And like, oh, she she may seem like she has an attitude or whatnot to me, like, oh, she's just being emotional. It's like, oh, there's something that might be bothering her. Let me
Yeah.
talk to her. Hey, maybe I'll rub her feet or something, like let me just show her some form of affection and just being there for her and learning. The biggest thing was knowing what forgiveness means in a
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably the biggest thing was, oh, so a marriage survives on God, love, and forgiveness.
That's true.
Cause of, cause I'm like, oh, okay. We let's say we have an argument. She does something I don't think is cool. I do something that she doesn't think is cool, and we might get mad at each other, and then a few minutes later, and 30 minutes later, or an hour later, or whatever, we're like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I love you, and I'm here for you." Just learning that a relationship will not survive if there is no forgiveness in it. That's the main thing. And another thing that I didn't get to see growing up, really, is just what does it mean to be in the moment or in the present when you're with your family? Like, I could be with my family, my wife, my son, but I'm not really there. I might just be on my phone or I'm just thinking because I get caught up in my thoughts all the time, just thinking, "Ooh, how should I plan this or I should do about this situation or whatnot?" And I have a hard time unplugging from everything and just relaxing my mind and just enjoying time with my family. It's really hard for me to shut my thinking off per se and just be in the moment because I never got to see what that looked like. And that's something I have a hard time doing right now. I felt like since I didn't have a father, that when understanding that God is our father, I took it to heart so much more because I just grew like I want to have a father in some way. I want to have a father. I need something to cling on, so I clinged on to God, and that's why I'm blessed because God approached me. God was there for me before anything else happened in my life. You know, where it could be like get into any types of gangs or just getting, in a group of, you know, people who would ruin my life. I would ruin my future. When I see the Bible, there's scripture calling God our Father, it gives me peace knowing that even though I might never have a relationship with my earthly father, that I get to have a relationship with the one who designed me and created me and knows everything about me. So it was always that's the thing that kept me together when I would deal with depression, anxiety, or just dealing with stuff now. That's something that always just resets me is okay, this God has me. I can keep going in life. I don't have to feel like I have to give up. I know he's there. I know he's real. I have faith in him. And plus, let me just give a shout out to the men who were in my life. Uh two there was a few uh my youth pastors, Patrick and Brian. They meant a lot to me in my teenage years. I mean, they still mean a lot to me now, but like I would see them every Sunday or every Wednesday or whatever date. I would go to church camps with them. I would have conversations with them. I got to experience, oh, so this is what a man is like when he's older, or this is how a man speaks with maturity. I didn't get to, the disadvantage of that is only got to see it every once in a while. It wasn't something that was daily, but they played a huge role in my life. especially probably my humor, and that's probably why all my jokes are kind of spotty, iffy. No, if they're listening, I'm just messing with you. Any- and my pastor, Pastor Tim Vickers, he played a huge role, especially my junior and senior year of high school, because he was assistant coach for my basketball team. But also just I knew him my whole life basically growing up, knew his son and everything. So that was just another a strong godly figure in my life. Uh and then a few of my basketball coaches, Huggies was there for me a lot my senior year of high school. Especially I was going through a lot of emotional things and hardships. I would talk to him about it and he was there for me and he got me through my senior year. And being one thing that also helped me growing up was playing basketball. I was part of the elementary, middle school, and high school basketball team of my school. And being around the other kids, the other boys, and having a coach who was always a male, was always a man, it kept me stabilized. You
Right,
know,
right,
like it kept me stabilized because 90% of the time, no other men in my life, but then basketball practice and games, oh, I'd be around a bunch of other kids and a bunch of other boys, but a male figure. So that's something. That's probably why I love basketball so much, is
right,
because it also played a role in my upbringing when it came to having a male figure in my life.
right. Yeah, I think people don't understand how how much of an influence they can have, especially people
Hmm.
in the church, sports coaches, and different things like that in people's lives, especially people who don't have that male figure, because even 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 at an age where we're adults, if we hadn't had that male figure while we're younger, people can say they've worked past it, they can still say these things, but we're always craving that. You know what I mean? We're always craving that person that we can look up to, that person we can go to, that person that we can learn from continuously. And with that last question, I know this question really wasn't on the list of questions that I gave you, so I'm gonna throw a random one in here. But can you say that at this moment in your life, are you still working through it, or can you say that you've forgiven your dad for not being there?
I've forgiven him for sure, for
Mm,
the most part. There might be times like dad, why?
yeah,
But it doesn't come from a place of bitterness or I'm disappointed in him. It just comes from a place I feel bad for him. Like I
yeah,
feel bad that he didn't get to have a better life for himself. That he got to miss out on the things that I'm getting to experience with my son. So I feel bad. I I wouldn't say upset. I get sad mostly, like man, wish I could talk to my dad. But I forgave him. I believe in high school. Senior year of high school is when I'm like, okay, I can't really, or maybe it was freshman year, somewhere between senior year of high school and freshman year of college, somewhere along that time frame where I'm like, I just gotta forgive, and I'm still dealing with you know the repercussions of not having father around, but I forgive him. I can't blame him for everything, and I think that was around the time I forgave him. But it was recently though, this past year or so, where I'm like, you know what, I can't put the blame on him for how I'm acting or anything. I'm my own person and I have to make my own decisions on how I'm going to treat my wife, my son, my neighbors, my friends, my families. I can't be like, man, well, dad, why didn't you do this? Or dad, why wasn't you there? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I got to take account. I have to take accountability and working on my own confidence, confidence in God, but also working on confidence of the man God wants me to be, that I know I can be that type of man, that I can walk in the shoes that God has given me. Because that's something that I definitely still struggle with is confidence, without a doubt. Because one thing I love is wrestling with my son. I love wrestling with him, roughhousing with him and everything. Because he's like, "Oh, dad, watch this, blah blah. I'm gonna jump on you. I'm gonna attack you. I'm gonna
Yeah.
tackle you and all that." And he's getting to express himself, and he gets to express himself with me.
Right.
Once
Right.
again, that's something I didn't grow up with. I'm not blaming my father for me not having any confidence. I'm 25 years old. I don't need to be like, well, my dad wasn't there and therefore blah. Now, I do believe that people have problems. They could have mental problems or confidence issues or anything because of how their parents raised them or didn't raise them, how they were absent from them, because that does play a huge role in someone's life. But it gets to the point where it's like, okay, I understand it. Now I need to know how to work on it. Because a lot
Right.
of people, they get stuck on, I know what the problem is, but we don't go further to like, okay, how do I work on this problem then? What is the solution to the problem? How can I work on it without my father being there to be the one to tell me this? Now I had to tell myself this, or now I had to work on it. And it might be difficult because it's not how things should be naturally, but it is what it is. And, that's why now I'm playing pickup basketball and stuff like that, just I'm wanting to work out, lose weight and everything like that. So I know, like, I can set a goal and I can achieve that goal. I
Right.
think that's what fathers can do greatly in a child's life, is direct them and give them goals to achieve. Maybe it doesn't always have to be life goals, but it's like, "Hey son, I need you to do this. Oh, son, I want you to start mowing the grass." Or I want you
Yeah.
to start doing stuff around the house with me. I want you to start remodeling this room in the house with me. Oh, I want you to put this bookshelf together with me. Just stuff like that that works on the child's brain skills, brain development, confidence, critical thinking. Fathers play a huge role in that. And it doesn't
Right.
always have to be something major like, "Hey, let's do this huge thing. I need you to help me with it." It can go from daily small tasks and bigger things, but I think that's what, happened to me, is that lack of goals in my life, setting goals and achieving goals.
Right.
I
Right.
think that's a huge thing that fathers do for their children.